skill? Do you have a certificate to show that you are qualified? A degree perhaps? Are you wondering what your qualification is worth? If so, you need to know about the National Qualifications Framework of Jamaica, the NQFJ. I am Monique Price, and I'll be telling you about the NQFJ. It is a tool that classifies all qualifications in the country. It recognizes qualifications, knowledge, and skills. The framework describes for you what learners should know, understand, and be able to do on the basis of a given qualification. It was developed as a requirement of Jamaica's Vision 2030 development plan to assist in the transformation of Jamaica's education sector. There are several benefits of the NQFJ. It allows your qualifications to be recognized in other countries. It means if you earned your qualification in Jamaica, it can be legally accepted and easily recognized in another country. It shows the equivalency of qualifications across learning sectors and regions around the globe. It increases access to higher education through flexible learning pathways that recognize formal, informal, and non-formal learning. It sets standards that evaluate the quality, validity, and relevance of qualifications. There are 10 established qualification levels, ranging from Access 1, which is basic, to doctoral studies. The NQFJ covers all learning sectors including general, secondary, technical and vocational, and tertiary education. Plus, it allows for the development of prior learning assessment and recognition, as well as credit accumulation and transfer systems. All qualifications placed under the framework are national qualifications provided by entities legally operating in Jamaica. For further details on how the NQFJ works, please visit jtec.gov.jm or call 876-977-5115. Go higher, move up the levels with the NQFJ.
Good day, I'm Gabrielle Thompson with an item of interest just in. The Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, J-TEC, is reporting that persons who have learned skills and competencies through experience are now able to get qualified. This is done through the Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition (PLAR) component of the Commission's National Qualification Framework of Jamaica, NQFJ. The PLAR identifies, documents, and assesses prior learning. Getting qualified through PLAR is for persons who have gained experience in various jobs and voluntary activities through a hobby, interests, independent study, or through training courses. Assessing prior learning takes into consideration your portfolio, results of a challenge exam, and your ability to demonstrate your skills. The benefits of this component of the NQFJ include eliminating learning duplication. It increases self-confidence in learners, validates learning through work and life experience, identifies areas that require further study, and encourages learners to pursue further communication. J-TEC says people who fall in these categories are capable of getting hired because they can actively demonstrate their skills through the portfolio of work they have developed. Stay tuned for more items of interest.
So go call mommy about this. So good. Hi, mommy. Were you watching TV? Yeah, breaking news just came in to say that you can get certified based on your experiences, skills, and portfolio. You remember when you were thinking about getting certified in domestic work? Yeah, well, you can contact J-TEC because you've been doing this for a very long time. All you have to do is visit their website at www.j-tec.gov.jm jtec.gov.jm, or you can call them at 876-977-5115.
Opportunity for us to get together and share our ideas on a day as today. We are grateful to see our stakeholders in attendance on our various platforms. And today we are going to be looking closely at some of the ideas, Oh, I'm not sure what happened there. I'm sorry. We're going to be looking at some of the ideas, some of the best practices, as well as some of the work that is being done in workforce certification. You may have attended our event on November 30, where we focused on our international stakeholders, and you were able to hear from various stakeholders on the best practices that are involved in ensuring that we have a certified workforce. Today, the conversation continues, and we'll be hearing from our stakeholders in Jamaica. At this time, I'm going to invite our Executive Director, Dr. Black, who will be talking to us about the Human Resource Development Strategy that the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission is working on, as well as all the work that is going into workforce certification here at J-TEC. Dr. Black.
Thank you, Mrs. Seymour Hall. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I want to acknowledge and thank you, Mrs. Seymour Hall, for the work that you have invested in ensuring that we are at this space. I want to acknowledge the team members who have worked in support of the overall process. And certainly we want to acknowledge our stakeholders who will be sharing with us through the course of this session to advise us all of the work underway, the critical work to facilitate the development of Jamaica's human capital. Certainly, Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, as the higher education body and agency of the Ministry of Education and Youth with the responsibility for the regulation and oversight of the sector, we are acknowledging the work and the role of the ministry, the current minister, in guiding and demonstrating a commitment to deal with many of the issues that detain our growth, detain our nation's prosperity, detain the ability, the capacity of our people to support the achievement of our Vision 2030 goal. And so we want to acknowledge that the work certainly of entities such as the Heart NSTA Trust, the JCTI, and then other entities, the institutions, continues apace. We certainly want to acknowledge the fact that, as with the Vision 2030 and the mandate to Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission for the development of a national qualifications framework, and that whilst it is that we have executed on that mandate and we have operationalized the NQFJ, one of the things that our current minister challenged us was to ensure that it was not a passive instrument, but rather one that would be utilized effectively in attending to and dealing with the significant issues related to the workforce and the gap in certification. The Planning Institute of Jamaica released its data, its report on the 2019 survey of living conditions. And in that report, we saw where 65.2% of individuals within the prime working age population were without certification. And we want to acknowledge the fact that here it is that when we speak about no certification, what we are speaking to is the issues related to individuals who do not possess any form of qualification at whatever the level within the education sector. And this is serves as a tremendous drag on the Jamaica's productivity, on their capacity, that is to say, the capacity of the individuals to achieve their personal goals, to advance in their education, and so on. Whilst it is that many of them would be competent, would be skilled even in areas in terms of their execution, what we are seeing and realizing is that they are stalled in their ability to move on. And so the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission has been tasked with the responsibility, and we are leading out with a group of representatives, including the PSOJ, the Jamaica Employers Federation. We have institutions, tertiary education institutions, the CCCJ, which is the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica, and other professionals from our diaspora network, Jamaica Social Investment Fund, the Planning Institute of Jamaica, and so on. And we have been doing some critical work in preparing the groundwork for a submission to our minister in this regard. So, Mrs. Seymour Hall, as we speak, therefore, in terms of workforce certification, one of the things that we want to do is to hear what it is that is happening within the Jamaican scenario, within the Jamaica environment where this issue is concerned. And we do have, and you will outline the plan for the day's activities, and you will outline and introduce to us who these speakers are. But I just want to indicate here clearly that the issues related to the significant gap in workforce certification force us to act. As we meet today, we do so having heard on January 13 the release of the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission's report on the state of our education. And that report raised some information, alerted us to the challenges associated with our educational system, recommended certainly some actions that needed to be taken, and there would be the need for the ministry, which it has already begun, Ministry of Education and Youth, to look at its implementation in terms of the short, medium, and long term, and beginning to plan for the resources required to do so. But we certainly have to acknowledge that report, which confirms and points to what we said in terms of the 2019 Jamaica Survey of Living Conditions, and the stark reality that 65% of the prime working age population, that is to say persons between 24 and 54, are without any form of certification. They possess no qualification whatever from any level of the system. So there are challenges associated with where we are currently: underemployment, unemployment, low productivity, skills gap, income constraints, lack of access to further education, limited social advance. And so the conversation that we are engaged in through these seminars are designed to facilitate this general public awareness, and then also to begin to communicate elements of the strategy that we want to implement. Additionally, I would say, and just to advise the team members, that firstly, when we began to look at and to converse within the task force on the matter of this human resource development strategy, targeted as it is to the workforce, the issue of the unattached youth, and we see the challenges, and this is not to say that this group would be totally to blame, but what we are speaking of in terms of just their disengagement from society, socially disadvantaged youth groups, you name it, and just their incapacity to be able to pursue education. And perhaps they themselves have given up, hopelessness. And so that was brought to the fore. And whilst it is that they may not be participating fully in the formal workforce, we have to be able to also seek to address this. And so this component is being advanced as well, even as we look to speak to the general issues related to the workforce. And so this opportunity is being seized this morning to continue that conversation. So we have a group in place. We want to work towards establishing a workforce certification coalition with a primary emphasis on the inclusion of the formal higher education institutions. As I said, HEART is doing an excellent job. JCTI is doing an excellent job, and we want to hear from them in terms of those components. But the extent to which we then pull other entities, the formal higher education system, the work place in terms of our employers, training professionals, human resource development professionals into this as we seek to, through the J-TEC, guiding, training, implementing, facilitating the development of prior learning assessment and recognition strategies in these organizations, certifying them, and then leading to the award of micro-credentials, badges, other credentials that would be able to help these individuals move forward. And so we are looking forward to the conversation. This is Seymour Hall, and I truly thank the panelists, whom, as I indicated, you will introduce in due course, for their willingness to participate in this journey with us. Good day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Black. It is so important for us to be looking at this important topic today. I'm just going to ask the host to enable screen sharing so that participants will be able to share their screen at the appropriate time. Thank you so much. All right, so our first panelist today is Miss Carol Rose Brown, and she is the director at the Jamaica Center of Tourism and Innovation. Miss Carol Rose Brown is tasked with implementing the Human Capital Development Strategy for the Ministry of Tourism through its agency, the Tourism Enhancement Fund. Please let me know if you are seeing her information on screen. Are you seeing it?
Yes, Nada, go ahead.
Okay, and so she's responsible for seeing to the certification of tourism workers as well as students in colleges working on degrees in hospitality, tourism, and the culinary arts. She's also responsible for developing a new type of attraction, which is in Jamaica called artisan villages. Ms. Brown has spent her career in human resources development, both as an academic and as a consultant working in the private and public sectors. She comes to the program to certify tourism workers with all this experience and an appreciation of the importance of tourism. She enjoys reading, board games, and cooking. She is passionate about her work and considers it serendipitous that she has the honor of heading the JCTI at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Carol Rose Brown as she shares with us some of the gaps, some of the challenges, and some of the opportunities involved in her work.
Good morning, everyone. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we are. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us. And of course, the Tourism Enhancement Fund is delighted to join with the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission to talk about certification. It is one of our pet areas of interest, and of course, this is what we do. Who needs certification? In tourism, that is a question we struggle with. We struggle with it not because we are unclear, but we struggle with it because many other people are unclear as to what tourism is about. But everybody needs certification. All of a sudden, we are conscious of the importance of room attendants and why they need to understand the difference between clean, sanitized, and disinfected. So room attendants need to be certified. Chefs need to be certified. Chefs need to be certified because in the preparation of our food, we need to ensure that proper rules of sanitation and nutrition are being honored. And the business of the fact that we eat with our eyes and our noses as well as with our mouths. These things are the repository of the knowledge of our cooks. Certification also needs to be available to managers and supervisors. And certification is important because it enhances individuals and provides third-party verification of what they tell you they know. This is really important because each of us brings a particular set of skills to the job we do. And it's not unclear what skills we have. And if it is unclear what skills we have, then we don't have skills. We believe in certification because all serious people are certified. People who take their profession seriously get certified. Doctors have to be certified. A bachelor's degree in medicine does not make you a doctor. I'm sure I'm speaking to the converted. A bachelor's degree in nursing does not make you a nurse. A bachelor's degree in engineering does not make you an engineer, etc. Serious people in professions across the universe understand that there are certification bodies to which they must apply, exams which they must pass, and by extension, certifications that are to be renewed. You notice I include in this picture a plumber, because certification does not require academic skills. That is not what we're saying. And I noticed your ad at the very start, Dr. Black, where a young woman is calling her mother who works as a helper to get certified. So again, all of us understand that certification is something we all must get if we're going to say to our potential employers that we know this. The Ministry of Tourism has undertaken a project to implement our 5-pillar plan for sustainable development. And sustainable development is important. I'm sure I don't need to make that point to anybody on this panel. We all understand that the issue is sustainability. And these 5 pillars include new products, partnerships, new investments, new markets, and of course, human capital development. And this is where the Tourism Enhancement Fund comes in, as the Tourism Enhancement Fund has been rebranded to take on a particular set of innovations and projects in the tourism sector, and the Human Capital Development Program is one of those. The JCTI has 3 main responsibilities. The first is to facilitate the certification of faculty, tutors, delivering hospitality, tourism, and culinary arts. We have had a struggle because when we started, oh, but you know, we have been doing this for a while, we know how to do this. No. In order to deliver according to the standards we are attempting to honor, tutors needed to be certified. The second is to certify tourism workers. And this has been a bit of a challenge because someone is going to say to me, but Carol, the stringent requirements of certification through the organizations with which you work cannot be met by tourism workers. I am here to say that happily that is not the case. The pass mark for the organizations with whom we collaborate. The pass mark is 75%, and it is not negotiable. And I am happy to report that tourism workers are doing just as well as anybody else. Thank you very much. And of course, a third goal is to facilitate the certification of college students, and that includes recent graduates who are studying hospitality, tourism, and culinary arts. I just want to pause here a minute to say that we also are working with high school students, but I'll say more about that in a moment, because Dr. Black just spoke to the fact that we are struggling with the young people who are coming out of schools without skills. So those are our main responsibilities for the JCTI. As I promised, we also have made a commitment to work with young people. The JCTI runs a summer internship program, and the summer internship program invites young people to work with a variety of employers in the tourism sector and outside of the tourism sector. And in addition, we provide every one of the young people, both high school and college students who participate in our program, with an opportunity to take the customer service gold certification program. And of course, successful candidates have this certificate. The other program we work with is the certification of high school students who are interested in hospitality and tourism. The Ministry of Education has an amazing program which provides young people with degrees in skills-based areas. In this particular case for the HTMP, the Hospitality and Tourism Management Program, students do a 2-year program in hospitality and tourism management, for which they get a certificate from the American Hotel and Lodging Educational Institute. Simultaneously, they do an associate's degree in customer service. And at the end of this 2-year period, these students, we believe, are ready for entry-level jobs in tourism. And even more important, we believe that in 2 years, these very young people will be ready to take certifications at a higher level and begin to address one of the major gaps we have in tourism, that is to say, capable, certified supervisory personnel. We do this work through local and international partners. Among our local partners is the JHTA, of course. An important partner is the Heart NSTA Trust. And another important partner is NCT Vet, because all of the programs we offer also come with an NCT Vet certificate, because we want to ensure that the certificates we have are completely and utterly understood in our region. And of course, all of these certificates are transferable. These are not certificates of participation, or as I like to say, precipitation. A partner is also the Joint Committee for Tertiary Education, and that is the local association of colleges and universities. Another partner is the Jamaica Ray Neville Academy, the J. Ray Neville Academy, with whom we partner with Heart and NCT Vet to deliver bartender certification, because of course, in tourism, many people travel and they're going to have a little more to drink normally than they would normally have. And we want to ensure our bartenders are conscious and aware of these things and their responsibilities in this regard. And of course, the Ministry of Education is a local partner. Our international partners are the American Culinary Federation, as well as the American Hotel and Lodging Educational Institute, whom we just mentioned. And a third partner is Smith Tourism Research. Now, when we started in 2017 and we introduced STR, nobody quite knew what we were doing, not what we meant, but as time has passed, we are now in a transformed world focused on digital skills. and data analytics, and the STR certification in hospitality information analytics is all of a sudden a very important set of skills, and we're wanting to expand the number of persons in Jamaica, the number of hotels in Jamaica using this data, and by extension, the number of people able to use this data. So the STR, the Certified Hospitality Information Analytics Program, is being rebooted. Our certification programs are delivered, as I said earlier, by certified trainers, and currently we have more than 75 of those persons certified in delivering different courses. Most of these persons deliver our courses online, and the candidates also are using our learning management systems to access this information and evaluate the work of the students, the candidates. Just to give you a list of the certifications we offer a range of hospitality supervision programs, customer service, and these programs, you can read the rest of them. In culinary, we want to ensure, for example, that people begin to understand the difference between cooks and chefs. Cooks are people who know how to cook. Chefs are people who write menus. They're not the same. We also provide certification for a number of middle management courses. You'll notice the Certified Hospitality Information Analytics and the Certified Hospitality Tourism Management Professional for high school students. Every one of these certifications, every one of them is internationally benchmarked. Every one of them is transferable. Every one of them is recognized in the wider community, in the wider world of tourism. And this is the requirement for certification, that when you get one of these certifications, everyone who sees the piece of paper knows what it means and is prepared to be impressed by the fact that you have this certification. These decisions were driven by data we examined at the start of this process of the establishment of the JCTI, to determine, to ask ourselves, where were the gaps, what was required, and by extension, what was necessary to fix those gaps. And it is on the basis of that evaluation and analysis that we have come to the decision to include this array of certifications in the work we do. Finally, I should say that we are tasked by our minister to expand access to these certifications to the region. So come the start of the next financial year, these certifications will be available to persons in the region. There are one or two challenges, for example, in the area of culinary. Each of these examinations has two parts, a written exam, a theoretical examination, and a practical exam, a cooking test. And these cooking examinations can only be carried out in certified ACF certified kitchens, 4 of which are in Jamaica. So candidates in the rest of the Caribbean who wish to be certified will have to come to the Caribbean or go to Florida or some other part in the United States to get certified. But this is where we are, and this is what we are tasked with doing. And finally, within 3 months, there will be a database available to all and sundry, all employers, all candidates, listing the number of persons who have one of these certifications. At present, that number is over 10,000 persons. And that database of certified persons will be available for persons who are seeking to employ people, people who are wanting to ensure that they are listed among the persons who are certified. And this information will be part of the discussion of the granting of work permits. So these are all the things we're doing to expand the number of persons with proper certifications in tourism and ensuring that our workforce is ready and able to participate in what we believe is the engine of our economies in the Caribbean, certainly the engine of growth in Jamaica, and possibly the largest industry on the planet. We are committed to the certification in tourism because we believe this is serious business, and we would like to encourage all the people in tourism, interested in tourism jobs, to think about getting certified so that they are saleable anywhere in the world. Thank you, everyone. I'm not sure how Mrs. Hall is dealing with questions, but I am delighted to have had a chance to participate, to share with you my thoughts. And let's hear where it goes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Carol Rose Brown. At this time, I'm going to invite participants to let us know if you have any questions. I'm so delighted to hear that you're going regional with the programs that you offered, and that you are really preparing a database of persons as well, so that others can know what's happening and what the qualification levels and so on are like. One question from me is, how do you facilitate flexible learning pathways for persons who may not have the standard the standard requirement that you may need for them to access a particular program?
The answer to that question is through our partners. One important partner of ours is Heart NSTA Trust. If a candidate, for example, comes to us and says to us, I would like to be certified as a chef, and we ask to look at his work experience or what it is he knows about nutrition or sanitation, and it falls short of what is required, Heart will provide this candidate with the time he or she requires to build up that knowledge and qualify at level 2, so that the individual can then move forward into our certification programs. And that is the case throughout. Further, we have gotten most people to agree that all candidates, certainly all the candidates in the Hart College of Hospitality Services, will be required to do the customer service gold certification to develop his or her soft skills before graduating. So to answer your question, we work very closely with Heart because our sense is that the purpose is to get people certified. The purpose is to find a pathway, and the pathway exists. Heart has excellent introductory and developmental programs. As the Ministry of Education, as I indicated, has the Occupational Associate's degree program, which is available to high school students, again, taking them up to level 2. All of these programs exist right here. We need to proselytize on behalf of these programs and get the information out to more and more young people so that they begin to understand that these skills are, these certification skill sets are available. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And what percentage of tourism workers are currently not certified? Are you able to say, or do you know?
I actually do not know the answer to that question. We are currently doing a survey, but let me say that there is a hotel family in Jamaica that has for many years worked with the AHLEI to have their people certified. So it is to say that there are many people in the tourism sector who are certified. What we notice with a lot of distress is that many hotel partners invite trainers into their institutions to deliver training, and all training is good, but much of the training comes at a very high price and is not transferable. That is to say, if you get a certificate of participation in, say, supervisory management from Hotel A. Hotel B, if you go to work with Hotel B down the road, will not recognize that training. And so that training is lost. The value of that training to you as an individual seeking to have more money for your time and experience and training is lost. And we have to begin to discourage what I call the certificates of participation, because they're really quite silly and they come at great expense. And what is so distressing is that all of these companies spend an enormous amount of their budget on their recurrent budgets paying the hard tax. And there are tremendous benefits to the organization for going back to heart and saying we will take candidates in as interns to get reduction in these rates, etc. But this is not happening, and we really must begin to encourage more and more companies to take advantage of the opportunities available through Heart Trust, Heart NSTA Trust. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well said. It is really so true that we need to ensure that persons are not just receiving certificates of participation, but that they're able to earn actual credits, for instance, when they've completed, that some type of competency level can be assigned to what persons are learning. And this is the goal. This is why the National Qualifications Framework as well is so important. And this is where we're focusing on having it implemented so that qualifications can be placed on it and qualifications can speak to each other, because you mentioned the fact that sometimes learning is not recognized, and we want all learning as far as is possible to be recognized. I see Mr. Muirhead as his hand raised. He has a question. So we'll take Mr. Muirhead and one or two more before we move on. Mr. Muirhead, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, colleagues. I listened with interest to the presentation, and just want to ask a follow-up question, because I'm from Excelsior Community College, and we have implemented the whole matter of workforce development. And what we find to be very successful is when we actually go into the organization to train the persons there. I know Heart has the facility, but more and more, it is more convenient for the staff at workplace to be trained at their workplace. It has a number of benefits. And so how could we use that training now to link it to the requisite qualification instead of saying that the training is lost? How can we merge the two? Because more and more we see that is happening in organizations.
Mr. Muirhead, yours is a very important question. And let me go at it from a different perspective. When I think of the challenges and opportunities raised by Dr. Black in his opening remarks, and I know it has been of interest to him for many years now, that is one of the major problems that we must address. What is the role of the employer in the business of the development of the workforce? You are absolutely correct. Learning cannot be done in the classroom. Skills training cannot be done in the classroom. Dr. Amonde I'm sure is going to address these things. Skills training is about practical experience doing these things. One of the things I am hoping that is going to come out of the development of this framework is to, I don't want to say require because that is too joined, but we must find a way of engaging employers with educators. Because if you produce somebody who has learned his business in the classroom, the employer is going to say to this candidate, but you have no practical experience. I mean, we're not looking for somebody who understands how to run a front office in the classroom. You don't know about the technology we have here. You don't know about the kinds of problems we have here. You really are useless. But this child would have spent his or her time getting a bachelor's degree at great expense to himself or to his parents, and only to discover that it's not quite as valuable as he thought it was. So we must find a way to connect universities, training institutions, let us say that, and workplaces. There must be a requirement. Mr. Muirhead, you can't open a high school unless you have a number of trained teachers. You can't open a college unless you have a number of PhDs. You can't open a medical institution unless you have a number of trained doctors. But we allow people to open all kinds of institutions in Jamaica without any understanding of the quality of staff that is required. And so that is a major loophole that we must fix. We must find a way to connect learning to work experience, universities to workplaces. That gap is one of the major things that needs to be fixed, because until that gap is fixed, the employer is going to say, I am going to teach the people what they need to learn to survive in my space. And I give them a certificate for having learned it. But when they go elsewhere, they're on their own. So that is my long-winded answer to your question, sir. It is a major gap that we in the administration business have to fix.
Thank you so much. Such a rich discussion right there, and so much to ponder, so much to learn. We're going to move on now to Dr. Amonde, who I'm sure will contribute to the conversation that we've been having. Thanks so much to Miss Carol Rose Brown. I know she has to leave early, so we're so happy to have her. And just to say,
sorry, Mrs. Hall, my needing to leave early was on the 28th, tomorrow. But you changed. I can stay with you all day today. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so great to have you. Dr. Marcia Amonde, she has portfolio responsibilities for overseeing the development of program and instructional resources in alignment with labor market needs and key pedagogical practices, advancing blended and online learning, integrating career development in programs, and advancing key initiatives in collaboration with relevant stakeholders, and providing oversight for the VDTI as a tertiary institution. Dr. Amonde has responsibility for the integration of TVET in the formal education system, including secondary and tertiary education, organizing leadership programs for TVET principals in school development planning, coordinating workshops for TVET teachers, and providing leadership for the monitoring and evaluation of TVET programs and initiatives, as well as capacity building of various TVET professionals. She has served as the UNESCO UNIVOC Cluster Coordinator for the Caribbean and is the official delegate for World Skills Jamaica. She holds a diploma in teacher education from the Sam Sharp Teachers College, a Bachelor of Arts degree from the UWI, Master of Science in Training Systems Design from University of Twente in Holland, and a doctorate that focused on effective learning in technical vocational education and training from the University of Manchester. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Amonde, as we continue this very important conversation on workforce development and certification. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Seymour Hall. And thank you for this opportunity to further the discussion with you as the National Service and Training Agency, HeartTrust NTA, certification is at the core of what we do. I want to thank Dr. Black and Miss Rose Brown for setting the stage so well, because they have set the framework for the issues that concern us all as they relate to certification. One of the things that has struck me is that there's a very high premium on certification, both for our adult participants and for our trainees. So when we have workshops, even a workshop for a couple days. For many of our teachers or instructors and for other TVET professionals, they always ask about their certification. They want to get their certification. Our trainees are asking for their certification, and we have seen issues in the news when we take some time to deliver that. And it really raises the self-esteem of our people, those in the informal economy. Dr. Black spoke to that when they get certificates to show what they can do. So there is a real high premium on certification, and it's very timely that we are having this discussion. You're already aware of what we do as a national training agency focusing on workforce development programs. So for us, our agenda looks at an economic agenda where we want to ensure that our trainees are work ready. We have a social agenda to address the needs of the unattached, the unrescued, the marginalized community. And we also have an environmental agenda when we speak about workforce development, because, and Ms. Rose Brown mentioned the word, it's about sustainability. And as we draw on the resources, how do we ensure that there will be enough for future generations? We also look at what we do within the context of the sustainability goals. And our work touches on all the sustainability goals, as far as I'm aware. TVET, workforce development, speaks to all of them. We are driven by the vision and the mission of the organization to ensure that we are really investing in human capital development that will advance us economically and socially as a nation. We are also driven by the national policy on TVET, and that policy has been around since 2014, spearheaded by Dr. Grace McLean, who was very instrumental in ensuring that we all coalesce around it. I think it's time now that we do some evaluation to see how much we have been implementing the policy. Our Vision 2030 goals continue to be very relevant. I've touched on the sustainability goals, and we align ourselves as we look at workforce development program to our UNESCO recommendations for what quality technical vocational education should seek to do in terms of building partnerships, promoting access, ensuring that programs are relevant, and having strong, effective governance and leadership framework in place. We look at the data from Statin, from PIOJ, from JAMPRO to ensure that we are being relevant and that what we are doing are aligned to our social and economic developmental goals. Our overview of the Heart and STA, you know, you're well aware, just reminding you, we merged with the Jamaica Foundation for Lifelong Learning, the National Youth Service, the Apprenticeship Board in 2018. Our act was amended in 2019. Part of our act speaks to approving and certifying courses to be pursued by persons desirous of obtaining technical vocational education and training. So certification is indeed relevant to what we do. In addition to our network of institutions and community-based training, we have some key partnerships and special projects. And Ms. Rose Brown spoke to us as a key partner when it comes on to the tourism hospitality industry. These are our strategic priorities, and you see that certification is really at the top of the agenda. In the training system, I'm told that we can be a very complex organization. We look at the inputs, what do we put in? So the framework and the structures are there to ensure that it's about relevance and it's about quality. That speaks to the inputs like the labor market information, the infrastructure, the equipment, certainly the priorities of our government and the funding from our employers that gives us the ability to do the work. And then we take that and we have the different processes. And out of that, we will now have key outputs. What's involved in the process? Key areas, and this revolves around our technical operating model. Key areas to the process are standard development, that's occupational standards, or curriculum or program development, and that's the area that I am a part of, or instructional resources, including the videos that we are now having online, the learner guides, and very importantly, as we grapple with the pandemic, the online blended engagement that both our instructors and our students have to be involved in. And that's a part of the training delivery. And then again, the assessment and certification. So certification is just, we can't escape it. It is just so key to what we do. And then for our graduates to find productive engagement in our different sectors, in our different industries, or to become entrepreneurs by creating jobs of their own. And so the key outputs: improved productivity, economic competitiveness, and competent certified workforce. And these are not just abstract terms. It's what we work to do every day. These are the issues that really engage us. So we go further down to, as I move on to the next slide, we therefore have some key pillars of certification that I just shared with you. And just in a more specific way, our labor market aligned programs. This is one of the things that's key to what we do in TVET, workforce development. If we're not speaking to our employers, then we are redundant. What we are doing is to no avail. It has to be a constant relationship, constant communication, and not having our employers on the periphery, but having them drive the agenda and coming in to say, what is it they want us to do in order to ensure that we have a competent workforce. That leads into our occupational standards or programs, or career guidance and counseling, having discussions with our participants and our trainees so that we can empower them to be a part of the process when it comes on to careers. Or delivery and or facilitation, we have various modalities. And this touches on one of the issues that came up earlier. For the informal economy, for many of those in our country who are out there working and are very competent, it's putting structures in place to ensure that they too are certified. And a critical, so it's about prior learning and assessment, recognizing that it's not about where you acquire the learning, but it's what you're able to use the learning to do, and recognizing that and certifying that. Assessment, various modalities, it takes place in different contexts, and then all about certification. So what's the nature of our certification? Our certification says it's a currency. You have the competencies for work. It's about, so we focus on to a large extent education for work. But I always think too, it's about your life skills. It's about your ability and the ability of our trainees to live in communities, to live in families, to be a part of a global world, to take charge of their lives, to be able to think instead of having others think for them. So our certification represents the profile of a full person, a holistic person. a graduate who has agency. That's the word being used now when we talk about TVET and what we are seeking to do. Having the life skills, and as UNESCO puts it, the ability to work, the ability to live, and the ability to learn, because it's constant change. And we have to help them to develop skills to embrace lifelong learning. So when you're certified, it should speak about you as a holistic person. That's what we want for our trainees and what we grapple with and seek to do every day. We offer the National Vocational Qualifications of Jamaica certification, the CVQ that has portability throughout the Caribbean internationally. We also offer City Skills certification. More recently, we are putting structures in place to increase certification for CXC subjects. We also offer customized certification, job certification. And what a job certification is really is a component of the National Vocational Qualification, CVQ, that we pull out and specifically certify you for a job. So it is more focused and it gets you ready immediately. It's about immediate upskilling and upgrading, very much aligned to the job that you're about to do or the job you're doing. We also offer the high school equivalency diploma program. We are trying to strengthen the certification for this to ensure that it's more readily recognized and it's valid. And we offer international certification. I heard Miss Rose Brown spoke about that. So we have had certification from the Culinary Institute of America for our chefs and the American Culinary Federation, and this includes certification for culinarians. This is what our enrollment and certification statistics have been since 2016. And we recognize that there are areas for improvements. So we are running below our projections. And we are now at 41%, trending to 41%. We really want to go beyond that. We would like to increase it to about 75, 80%. And this means working with our partners, supporting our trainees, and ensuring that our instructors and our institutions are really on top of it all in terms of quality instruction and tracking the certification rates. So as I said, at the moment, we are below our projection when it comes on to certification. And that is a challenge for us. And it's one that we are well aware of, and we are working assiduously to ensure that this is improved. Industry engagement is key to the certification. Even as we get the funding from our eligible employees, they are the ones who provide the standards so we can inform the development of the programs to ensure that our certification will be relevant. And our industries are also involved in giving us guidance through the governance structures of our management advisory committees. We also have the Sector Skills Council, where they tell us about the jobs that are in demand, because key to certification are relevant programs that meet the needs of the industries. They also provide apprenticeship and work-based learning for our students. So again, they are really acquiring the competencies and that the certification can speak to, that show that they are ready for work. And we also, part of the certification process, so there are quite a lot of inputs, as I said earlier, is that we want to expose our instructors to what is happening. So they are not only in our institutions, but they're actively out there in the firms and industries, knowing about cutting edge technology and coming to use that to inform the program so that they can be more current and relevant. And all of that, again, feeds in to the nature and what the certification speaks to. Career development is an integral part, and we are doing career development, for our students. So when they are certified, they are in jobs that they are being prepared for jobs that they have an interest in, jobs that they know are emerging, and there are new jobs, jobs for which there is a demand out there for those jobs. So many of our young people now, I find, are quite disillusioned. They are getting certification and they are now saying, what do I do with it? So I think even as we go through the process, it's important that we empower them so that they can know how they can use the skills that they have acquired to really make a difference and find jobs that are really fulfilling. These are some of the areas, and you've seen the array of hospitality programs. These are some other programs that we offer certification in. They are not all listed here, but so for example, the automotive industry, we have our Jamaica German Automotive School, and we offer certification in that area. We're doing a lot of work now with the global skills sector. That's the what's known as the BPO sector, because that seems to be a very vibrant area, providing jobs for our young people. And so we are working with them to train and certify for those areas. Construction, we see there ICT, many new and emerging areas aligned to ICT are coming now. We see cybersecurity, database administration, we see coding. Those are some new and emerging areas. We also have mechatronics, robotics, optoelectronics. So it is important that we are certifying in areas, as I said earlier, for which there is a demand, these new and emerging areas. The programs are in various levels. So we are, and these are all aligned to the National Qualifications Framework of Jamaica. So in an effort to have an integrated system to ensure that TVET, what we are doing is integrated with the rest of the education system, we are aligning our certification and our programs based on the NQFJ framework. So in level 1 speaks to our directly supervised worker. There is a high degree of supervision when you have a level 1 certificate. Then we move up to a more skilled worker who has less supervision, has more skills. That's for level 2. Level 3 is really the supervisor. Level 4, the middle manager. Level 5 speaks to the manager, and beyond, we have the specialist, where you are really versed in what you're able to do, and you are able to lead and supervise others and be innovative and creative. Levels 1 and 2, those are the certificate levels. Level 3 is really at the diploma level. Level 4 is the associate degree. Again, this is aligned with the National Qualifications Framework. Level 5 is really our degrees. And above that, we have the postgraduate certificate and the master's. In terms of the modalities that through which we offer training in our institutions. We have over 82 community training interventions, apprenticeship that's right there in the workplaces, on-the-job training, which is very key to what we do. Okay, so it's not just about classroom training. And we have programs for at-risk youth, and most of these programs take place on the job. We also have the support programs where we mentor, and it also allows for our young people to to become involved in volunteerism. So these are some key programs that we offer and for which we offer certification. Another thing that we have found very modality through which we allow for certification is our mobile assessment unit. And we have found that this is really addressing a need for certification in the informal sector. So the barbers, the hairdressers, the customer service persons, those who are out there in the communities, actively working and making a difference. We find ways to get to them, to assess them, to say, let us see what you already know, and then to work on addressing the gaps, to let them know that these areas are outstanding. We can support you in addressing these gaps, in helping you to acquire these competencies, and then you can get your certification. This helps us to go into some very deep rural areas. So it is also about access, reaching persons wherever they are, and really equipping them with certification that's aligned to international standards. So we really support them in addressing those gaps and recognizing what they already come with. That's our mobile assessment unit. Our certification speaks to key skills. In the technical areas, it speaks to key attitudinal skills. And sometimes I think we do not give enough focus on the attitudinal skills, but they are very important. Our employers will often say to us that your graduates have the attitudinal skills, but they have the technical skills, but they are lacking in the attitudinal skills. Many of these skills are referred to as transversal skills. Our certification also speaks to the cognitive skills. That's the ability to solve problems, the ability to be critical thinkers, the ability to analyze and synthesize. Very importantly now, where everybody's been asked in one way or the other to go on and be digital, it also speaks to the ability to demonstrate your digital skills. And we also have what's known as green skills, the reduce, the recycle and reuse. It's the care for the environment and using resources efficiently, simply put. And the Patterson report recently spoke about the need for the STEM skills, the science, the technology, the engineering, and the mathematics. And I would also like to add the arts, so the STEAM skills, as it were, and ensuring that our programs are really at the level where these skills are integrated. And we integrate these skills in all of our programs. So the certification, this is a certification, it's all in all its fullness. This is what it really represents. Prior learning assessment, I spoke to that already, recognizing the experience, the knowledge and attitudes that you have acquired over time. And I'm coming down now. The assessment pathways, on-the-job assessment in the institution. We also do the challenge test, the certification of prior learning. So it can both be on the job and institutional. These are some of our assessment strategies, quite a variety of them. The list is not exhaustive. Every year we have some key goals relating to certification. This year we're seeking, and our year ends in March, at the end of March, that's the end of our financial year. We have a certification target of 56,000 that we're trying to achieve. And we want to ensure that we this represents enrollment in some new and emerging areas. And we want to ensure that our trainees are not dropping out, at least 85% remain in programs so that they can be certified. We talk about opportunities, which is in keeping with the theme. One of the opportunities I see is ensuring that our certification is widely recognized. We are still struggling with that in some domains, that we are really aligning it all to the National Qualifications Framework of Jamaica, that our certification represents relevance, and that our employers are comfortable when we say our graduates are certified, that they are satisfied that they can do the work for which they are certified. There's also greater emphasis now on micro-credentials. That's short, intense, quick areas for upskilling and upgrading. Work is evolving, and we have to constantly be learning. So we have to respond to that and provide some very quick certification without compromising the quality. And I know that UCJ is putting some standards in place for that now. Even as we look at online learning, how do we allow the integrated system online so that you come up, you register, you take part, the training is facilitated, assessment is done, and then you immediately get your certification. That's another opportunity we need to capitalize on. The matriculation, articulation as an education system. How can we recognize the certificates that we issue at heart? How can our level 3 allow for matriculation into a degree program at J-TEC? How can some of our professional development courses, for example, in leadership, be recognized for courses, say at UWI in TVET leadership, and credits are awarded as you enter the program? What structures can we strengthen to ensure that those in our informal economy, the many persons out there in Jamaica nationally who are not certified and really want to raise the quality of their work, they want to advance, to raise their esteem, to get them to feel good about themselves? How can we increase the structures for awarding certification and helping them to feel as if they are citizens making a contribution to their own lives and to nation building? So I think that's very important. And lastly, we need to reduce our dropouts, our incompleters. Many times our trainees leave in the middle of a program to get jobs elsewhere. But while we want them to get the jobs, we also want them to be certified so they can move, they can work in Jamaica, regionally, internationally. And having our employers being satisfied with the certificates that we issue and realizing that they really represent the competencies that they want in the jobs. So those are some of the challenges we grapple with daily, and that we put structures in place to ensure that we are addressing. Okay, so this is where I end in talking about certification and how we are strengthening the systems, both for those in our institutions and those in the informal sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amonde. Very comprehensive presentation, looking at all the myriad of opportunities, challenges, as well as accomplishments of Heart Trust NSTA. And you've really set the tone for the next speaker, because you spoke about the fact that we have to ensure that the certifications represent what employers need, and that is so critical. Another point that you raised earlier is the fact that some of the projections that you would have wanted to accomplish, those were off. Can you say what's one of the reasons that would account for the projections to be off? And what are some of the strategies that, well, you shared some strategies that can be pursued to assist in that?
Okay, many of our graduates, many of our trainees are dropping out. They are out there and they go and they find jobs. Others become disillusioned at some point in the training. And so they are not staying the course in order to get their certification. There are times also when we have difficulty finding assessors for some of the areas, and that also may put a delay on certification and us achieving our certification targets. So I think the dropout rate is one of the areas that we definitely need to address. And even as many decide to transition to jobs, how can we support them even while they are in those jobs?
Thank you so much, Dr. Amonde. All right, if you have additional questions, you can put them in the chat. I'm going to allow Mr. David Wan to come on at this point. We are running a little bit behind schedule, and we want to, oh, hold on. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Dr. Block. It's just a simple question I have. It's just a piece of data I was wondering if I could be helped with. What is the average time between the completion of the curriculum, the program, and the actual provision of a certificate, signifying certification to the trainees? I'm just interested in that piece of data.
Well, you should be able to get your certificates within 2 to 3 months. However, we have been having some challenges at NCTVET in recent times. It has been in the news, and that period has been extended. But we now have a council in place and we are working on that. But within 2 to 3 months, you're able to get your certification. And we are improving that because we are now ensuring that we have, we're going to be sending out the certifications digitally to our trainees. So it will be sent out electronically. So we are hoping to improve on those timelines.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And of course, you can continue sharing in the chat and we'll get back to some of the additional questions. At this time, I'm just going to introduce for you Mr. David Wan. He's the president of the Jamaica Employers Federation. Mr. Wan's previous board memberships would have included the Development Bank of Jamaica, the National Housing Trust, chairman of Bellevue Hospital, as well as University of the Commonwealth Caribbean. His financial sector experience includes banking, investment management, and stockbroking, as well as life insurance. He is a citizen of both Jamaica and the US. He holds a bachelor's and a master's degree from the Florida International University. Thank you so much, Mr. Wan, for joining us. President of the Jamaican Employers Federation.
Good morning all. Madam Moderator, Mr. Seymour Hall, Dr. Black, Executive Director of J-TEC, I believe that's the title, and our panelists and all the audience in attendance, a very good morning and a belated Happy New Year to all. Commendations to J-TEC and MOEY for putting together this forum to discuss workforce development in Jamaica. I'm pleased to provide an overview of the employer's perspective on workforce development today. Before I jump into the heart of it, what I want to say, I just want to say to Ms. Carol Rose Brown and Dr. Rowe that we take full note of the point you're making about the need to be further collaboration, deeper integration between employers and the educational institutions, such as HART and the university system and other training institutions, to make sure that we are maximizing what the output of these education systems are to the benefit of the employers. So we take the points and we note them very carefully. What I want to speak about today is three main things, just from as they say, a view of 20,000 feet above. It's not very detailed, but I want to make some points about workforce development to contribute to this forum. I want to speak about foundations of learning and preparation for the world of work. That's one. Two, the realities of the Jamaican workplace and its needs from the education policymakers. And finally, the changing world of work, particularly opportunities presented by this pandemic in terms of training and our workforce. So, on the foundations of learning, Jamaican employers, like those in many jurisdictions, are willing to give on-the-job training and apprenticeship periods to employees. However, the results of such efforts are not consistent. And I also make note of the need for certification at all levels. It's not just on-the-job training and apprenticeship. Then we need to move to certification in every occupation. So the deficiency in these foundations of learning is the need for basic numeracy, literacy, and interpersonal skills that are not at a high enough level to make the investment in training and apprenticeship worthwhile in all cases. I'm not saying it is totally, inadequate, but in some cases. There needs to be a higher percentage of students passing 3 or more CXC subjects. The figure I have, the latest figure, is 47% of the high school class that took the CXC. Only 47% got the 3 or more CXCs. And preferably, those 3 subjects should include English and mathematics, as for most employers, this is the bar that must be achieved before someone is employed or considered for employment. Now, some of our BPO operators have even moved the bar to 5 CXC subjects as they are migrating their services to higher skill level tasks. Tasks such as medical insurance claim processing, technology customer support hotlines, etc., versus the traditional customer service and telemarketing roles that we're all used to in the BPO business. So if you think about it, if roughly half of the high school graduating class is not going to be qualified to be considered for employment, let's say in the BPO industry, and then I have another figure that says of every 10 potential employees who meet this 3 CXC level, of every 10 that are interviewed by the BPO industry, possibly only 60 to 70% are employed. Then you cut down another cohort, which means the resultant output to the BPO industry is significantly down from the total of somewhere about 40,000 each year that take the CXC. That's the figure I have. So we can see that the labor shortage that we heard of in the BPO business just recently this is part of the reason why there's a labor shortage. Just not enough people to fill the seats that they have, and the business has turned around significantly since the pandemic started. I think we're at the tail end of the pandemic. We all hope that employment is increasing in the BPO sector. That's just one industry. Another set of skills that needs to be enhanced while a student is in school is interpersonal communication, team building skills, courtesy, being punctual, And that one for me is very important because I notice, you know, at all levels of a society, being punctual is not something that everyone adheres to, which I find a little annoying. And this other one that you know, is a pet peeve for me, you know, another skill that needs to be enhanced while a student is in school is conflict resolution training. I mean, I'm not sure exactly the how, but I know it needs to be there because this pays great dividends in the workplace when these students come up to the workplace, as well as in the homes and in the crime rate that we're having, so that youngsters from an early age can learn to resolve their differences without stabbing each other. And, you know, so I think those skills need to be reinforced at a very early age, including the team building, the courtesy, the punctuality, etc. I don't claim to have any solutions to it, but I think one of the ways that this could be achieved is to have a better deployment of the existing resources is needed to move the needle in this metric. Perhaps shifting of resources from tertiary to primary and secondary schooling, or even early childhood, is needed. One factor which seems to work against this movement and shift towards the primary, secondary, and the early childhood is seeming affinity of the policymakers for encouraging all students to aim for a university degree as their pathway to a better life. I would maintain that a university degree is not the optimal path for all our students. Yes, there will always be a cohort that has the resources and the intellectual capability to pursue the law, medicine, engineering, etc. However, for some, a better way is to pursue skills training that are relevant to the Jamaican workplace. And I think some of the themes I'm hearing this morning is really encouraging because, you know, we are seemingly trying to raise the prestige of skills training versus a university education. Nothing wrong with a university education, but there seems to be some, almost a stigma attached to technical and vocational training that many students seem to want to shun that strictly for getting a degree in some field of study. Okay, so let's move on to the realities of the Jamaican workplace. Jamaica is mostly a services-based economy. Tourism, business process outsourcing, financial services, etc. Plus a fairly significant, although I call it rudimentary, agricultural sector because a lot of the agricultural sector is subsistence farming. There are a few large players, but the large majority are small and medium farms. While there's a need for traditional academic skills, such as accounting and legal certification, in my opinion, the greater need is on the non-degree side of certification. As we speak, many new hotel projects have been restarted after a pause during the pandemic. One example is the H10 hotel in Trelawney, which just came online at 444 new rooms. And as I understand it, there's several thousand new rooms in the planning stages and going to be carried through over the next 2-3 years. So when all this room stock is added up, it's not difficult to understand why there will be increased demand for air conditioning technicians. Every room has an air conditioning unit. The electrical and plumbing technicians and chefs. So also, when we consider the BPO sector is now employing 45,000 persons and growing daily, we can understand why there's a demand for computer technicians to support the platforms that each BPO employee needs in order to do their job. So to reinforce the earlier point, we need more certification in areas like air conditioning and refrigeration technician, plumbing, computer technician, culinary skills, etc., to support our services economy. And that is just the reality of our Jamaican economy. It is highly services based. We still have some bauxite. We still have some degree of manufacturing, but it's mostly services based. And we need to make sure that we are planning for this in all the training initiatives and all that we're trying to do for the economy. I just want to make a quick point about certification, and this morning we've heard a lot about certification, and we endorse that 100% in order to make sure we have a good quality of worker in our workplaces. But I believe there's a big gap also in the whole area of licensing, so, and this is particularly relevant for those persons who are trained in some skill like plumbing or air conditioning, refrigeration, etc. If you're going to hang out your own shingle and offer services to the public. Now, for example, in the US, if you're going to be building houses and apartments, you can't just go out and employ some engineers and some masons and so on and start building houses. You have to be a licensed general contractor, and you have to go through a certain amount of training and due diligence by the state or the country to make sure you are trained in certain things. So I think this type of licensing we have a long way to go in Jamaica, because as I know there's electrical licensing, but I don't know about plumbing and other technicians, if they need to be licensed. And I mean, when you think about even this is not technical skills, but I want to make the example in the area of being a pastor at a church. If you can rent a tent and, get 30 seats and a pulpit, you can call yourself a pastor without any kind of training, without any kind of, official learning in that area. And when you think about the Kevin Smiths of Jamaica, it begs the question, should we be putting them through something which says, we've looked at you and you've achieved certain training and you're licensed to do this. And I think that's true for some other occupations too, that I think we need to go with the licensing to make sure, when you hear about the people building apartments without proper approval from the town planning authorities, you have to think, what is it that we can do to prevent this kind of thing happening in the future? And to me, the answer is licensing and certification by the local authorities, etc. So I just want to make that quick point about licensing. Now, I want to move on to the final topic, the third one. It's the changing world of work and the opportunities presented by the pandemic. The world is not standing still, and the opportunity presented by the pandemic for Jamaica to leapfrog our competitors, other countries, in terms of training and development shouldn't be wasted. Many persons were laid off and furloughed during COVID. And I think this whole experience where the economy is, down compared to previous years, I think it must be seen as the opportunity to begin to equip our workforce of the future. An example is in the global thrust to reduce carbon emissions. The advent of electric vehicles is here, not so much in Jamaica, but from what I'm reading all over the world, there's no turning back. Electric vehicles are going to be dominant in the next 3 to 5 years. It's my projection. That will be the majority of new cars sold. So all of our automotive repair technicians that are currently certified, etc., will be obsolete in a few years if they don't learn or begin to learn to service electric vehicles. We need to anticipate and prepare for that time so that we don't find ourselves, importing lots of these vehicles and then suddenly we have to bring in foreigners to service these vehicles. Another example is in the solar equipment technicians. As the price of oil increases and the price of solar panels and batteries decreases, there'll be a greater demand for solar equipment and the technicians to service this. I mean, I'm seeing so many of my neighbors putting up full solar equipment on their houses now. You know, I think the trend is clear. So many of our current electrical technicians, I would say, need to be retrofitted to be able to maintain and repair solar power systems, because that's the way the world is going. And if we wait for the demand to build up without the technicians to service them, I think we would have missed a great opportunity. And we need to anticipate how the world is going. That's the point I'm making. Still another example is for respiratory therapists. We will have to learn to live with COVID for the foreseeable future. It's going to be endemic, not pandemic. But persons like these who I don't believe they're in great supply now, they'll be needed in the future to support doctors and nurses and other medical staff in the treatment of COVID and other viral diseases in the endemic stage, not pandemic anymore. And I just foresee that being a fairly significant demand later on. So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I summarize by saying that we need to, one, improve the quality of the output of our schools. We need to improve the level of exam passes and some soft skills that are much harder to inculcate once the student leaves school. And two, we need to shift our emphasis from university degree for all to one that recognizes other pathways for some students that can be just as fruitful and satisfying for them as, you know, any other path, as the university degree is for those who are suited for it. And finally, we need to anticipate the changing world of work and prepare our workforce to excel in this new world of work and make Jamaica more resilient to external shocks, such as oil prices and natural disasters, including pandemics. So those are the messages I'd like to share with you today from the employer's perspective. I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Madam Moderator, that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. One, and several critical points have been raised here. A lot for us to ponder as we tackle this issue of workforce certification in a post-pandemic world, in a world where we're all talking about the fourth and the fifth industrial revolution. It's critical that we get it right. We actually ran a poll on YouTube, Mr. One, that looked at what's more important, hiring for attitude and training for skills, or, you know, how important should attitude be for employers? You mentioned the fact that many of our workers don't have the attitudinal traits that you would desire, such as interpersonal communication, team building, punctuality. How important is it that employers focus more on hiring for these attitudes and then looking at upskilling the employees? Do you think it's something that's widely practiced? Are we ignoring sometimes persons who could become certified if we just give them a chance to start somewhere?
Yeah, I think so, but I think it has to be a balance. I think you need to look for both, the aptitude to become trained as well as those soft skills I mentioned. I think those have to be, you know, in balance. And I think you have a greater chance of success with that employee if you have that balance, because you could have someone who is the best, most mannerly person, but they really don't have the aptitude to learn certain things. So I think it's a balance between the two.
And finally, do you think employers are investing enough in getting their workers certified?
When I think about our membership, I would say, you know, that it's at a fairly high level. but it could be better. But the ones I worry about are more those who are micro businesses that are not necessarily our members, those that are above the micro level, that are just finding their footing and just don't have the resources to invest in the employees as they'd like to. There can always be more investment in employees. Let's face it, you know, and even some of our members, I don't think they're spending enough. But remember, our membership includes the NCBs and the Digicels, as well as smaller employers. So a good number of our employers, and these tend to be the ones with more resources, I see them investing quite a bit in the upgrading their human talent that they have. And they also they also screen more carefully because they can afford to pay more than the average company. So they have a choice. They can afford to turn away people that are applicants that don't seem to have all the skills that they need, don't have the right temperament, attitude, etc. So it's a mixed bag, is what I would say.
Thank you so much. And I see Vesta Hansel agreeing with you in the chat in terms of ensuring that we invest more in early childhood, primary and secondary levels in order to have better outcomes. And indeed, this is one of the recommendations that we saw coming out of the recent recommendation from the Commission on Education Reformation.
By the way, I wrote this before I saw Patterson's report.
So you see, they say great minds think alike.
Carol Rose Brown and Vesta Ansel have questions, please. Carol Rose Brown first, and Vesta.
Yes, I just wanted to say that this has been very enlightening, and the fact that so many people seem to be of the same mind. I don't want to repeat David one, but improve the output of our schools. We know that something that is less than 8% of the children going into first form emerge with even one CXC.
Wow.
Expand beyond the academic thing to recognize that more than 50% of the jobs in the world do not require a college degree, and begin to plan for the new technologies that are on our doorstep. Now, having said all of this, Mr. One, and having admitted that your membership employers generally are not spending as much on human capital development as they should, I am wondering also whether or not the private sector, the employers, are ready to participate, to collaborate in providing work experience. Because again, skill development attitudes, do not develop a priori. They develop in context. And if you begin to talk about being on time, being polite, being civil early enough, if you give people the opportunity to practice these skills, then they will improve. But it's a very difficult thing to teach these things in a classroom.
Yes.
And therefore employers must, it seems to me, and again, I'm repeating myself because I believe that is one of the major things that Dr. Black has to try to fix. The employers and the institutions need to begin to collaborate far more closely, because that is the place in your shop. That is where people understand how the world works and what it is you need to do to succeed in that space. I'm wondering whether or not you sense that your colleagues are interested in collaborating with institutions like ours to provide internships, opportunity for learning by doing.
I think there's some interest, but I want to just follow up on a point you made. The soft skills that we talked about. It's not easy to train it, which is why I mentioned this thing needs to be inculcated from the early childhood and the primary and the secondary schools, because it's over a course of many years that you really get these soft skills. You can go to a training course that lasts 4 hours and tells you all about these soft skills, but you're not gonna have them and have it, being second nature until you live it and do it for a few years. So going to a 2-hour training course on soft skills, you know, is not going to do much.
We agree.
Yeah.
We agree entirely. And this is why I'm saying that is why internships become so important.
Yes.
And internships beginning in middle school becomes so important. I mean, for example, all the children I know, I tell them to go and find something to volunteer to do during the summer. Even if you're not getting paid to volunteer, because you need to understand how the world works. That when somebody says you are at work at 8:30, doesn't mean you arrive at 8:30. It means you're at your desk and your computer is on at 8:30.
Of course.
But these kinds of things are not clear to the casual observer.
Yeah,
but you can't learn that unless, and if your parents don't practice this skill, and you certainly have no way of learning.
No way. But I want to make a point about the interest of employers to provide apprenticeships. We currently have in Jamaica something called employment tax credit. It came in during the Portia Simpson Miller administration, where if you keep 100 persons employed, you know, you get a certain tax credit. But some of our employers are saying, why can't we get some sort of tax credit if we provide apprenticeships? You know, because even though the authority will give up certain tax revenue now, it will come back later when we have a much more productive workforce or competitive workforce, because they are properly trained, etc. So I think that's part of the discussion too. Can there be a financial benefit to the companies that provide apprenticeships? And I want to mention a particular company, and they're not afraid for me to say it, Nestle. If, in case you don't know what they do, when they've got 5 positions to fill, they advertise the positions publicly, and they take on like 10 or 15 persons into a training program and train them about all the Nestle basics in customer service, etc. And they select 5 from them, and they give all the 15 a certificate of having gone through the Nestle training program, even though they only hire 5. So for those 10 that don't end up working there, that certificate of participation, I don't know if it's called that, but it's a certificate from Nestle, can open a door for those other 10 people somewhere else in the working world. And I think it is a great way to achieve some corporate social responsibility by training more than you need and letting them go and find their own way elsewhere too. So I was quite impressed with that method.
Okay, thank you so much. I know Miss Vesta Ansel also had a question. Would you like to share that question? And when she's finished, we'll just ask Mr. Is it Gresford Bennett from JCEF. They've had quite an interesting experience, and he's just going to share with us for 5 minutes what that has been like, because one important 5 minutes or less, one important aspect that we have to consider is the fact that no entity can do it alone, and it has to be a public-private partnership in most instances, and we must set out in targeted ways to look at persons who are in the greatest need, and they've been doing that. So he's going to share some insights from that. And we're running a little bit over time, but it's such a great conversation. We definitely want to conclude it. So we'll have Miss Ansel share, and then we'll have Mr. Bennett from JCEF share, and continue to share your comments in the chat. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, moderator. Let me just say, Mr. Wong, that it is indeed, finally, I'm hearing something that after 21 years of being in the education system, you know, an employer coming out and saying that this is really what is happening and what is wrong. I mean, after analyzing what has been happening, the reality is that what you're experiencing is a greater problem that has been happening in the social institution. There's a whole lot of breakdown right across the board. And the reality is that the employers can't pick up what the education system really ought to do, or the education system can't pick up what the family is supposed to do. So how do we really try to create a balance? And for me, I'm thinking, let's unearth and do some renewal. One of the most important things for me is competency-based training at the early childhood level. You are saying to me that 2.5 to 5, you're supposed to acquire a certain skill. If you don't acquire the skill, you can't move on. And for me, this is critical, because what happens is that if the skills are not acquired at that level, what you find happening, as I stated earlier, you keep on pushing students. And so by the time they get to me at the high school level or eventually at the college level, the critical thinking skill is non-existent. The soft, the soft skill is non-existent. And true, if you're not seeing your families exercising these skills, then it might be that you're not going to be, but the reality is that we're grooming young individuals, and a part of the socialization process, which is the secondary socialization process. The more you train, the more you inculcate, is the more persons get it. So what is happening is that the shifting paradigm requires a shift from early on to change the mindset, because a lot of times it is really embedded in the mindset. I have the qualification, but I just don't know how to exercise, go about doing. And that is one of the key challenge that we have been having. And you are so right. And I mean, I hang on every word you said, because finally someone is saying what needs to be said. We need to really start to look at how we are going about from the early childhood. And no matter how much path we develop, if we don't get it right at the early childhood level, we're going to be in problems, serious problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hansel. Well said. We have to get it right, and we have to ensure that the intervention programs are in place for those who need help in acquiring those early skills, because that's a major weakness at this point. I'm just going to invite now Mr. Bennett to share. I see the point about an employee tax credit coming from Dr. Amonde. An employee tax credit for apprenticeship is an idea that we should definitely consider at the policy level. So we're going to ask Mr. Bennett now to share the JCEF experience briefly and to say what his views are on the topic. Is Mr. Bennett here? Mr. Bennett?
Yes, just unmute, Mr. Bennett. Unmute.
My apologies. As I said, thank you, Madam Moderator. Dr. Block, Chairman, all protocol observed. I have a presentation here. I'll probably send that to you via email, but I'll just share just the main points around it. I'm going to share with you pretty much the JCEF experience working in some of the most challenged communities across the country. The Rima, the Tivoli, the Namtown, and the Town, the Granville. The Integrated Community Development Program actually working about in 7 parishes and 18 in communities. And livelihood, alternative livelihood and skill development is one aspect of our engagement with these communities. The approach is somewhat multi-layered. We look at understanding the trainees, demography and challenges. We look at engaging the trainers and share the understanding of the trainees and their needs. And we look at joint engagement with trainers and trainees. Quite a bit of pre-training workshops and an extensive orientation program. The approach in itself, we look at early job readiness assessment, as we speak about actually preparing persons from these challenge setting with, a certain psychosocial characteristics, certain mentalities to actually enter the job market. And the job readiness report that we do for each of the trainings actually look at physical readiness, psychological readiness, social readiness, vocational readiness, placement readiness, things like doing an application form, doing an interview, you know, the dress, whether physically they are able, they look like they're able to stand up for 8 hours of work. You know, just we go through an assessment with them, and as a part of the engagement itself, we actually work on areas of weaknesses that comes out of that job readiness assessment. We look at tailoring training to address the needs of the trainees, and we look at some post-training support. Just to quickly look at some of the numbers from the JSAFE experiment, and I'd just like to state that one of the underpinning philosophy for the team that I manage looking at alternative livelihood skill development, looking at livelihoods, is that the training is not a result. You know, the training is not the result that we seek. It is really a mere tool in that if done in a quality way, it will point our beneficiaries in the direction that will improve, you know, their livelihood. We worked with over 3,000 persons over 3 years. We have a 90% attendance rate. We have an 89% completion rate. The job readiness assessments, and about 80% of them were actually job ready at the end of the program. The independent consultant that were brought in by the World Bank to actually assess the program provided the data that there's a 48% placement rate post-COVID, and it was as high as 52% prior to COVID. And we had about 20 to 30% of the trainees actually involved in entrepreneurial activities. Sorry. Some of the, we worked with them at a wide array of skills, but some of the non-traditional skills included hair conditioning repair. We look at the J-TEC certification 1, 2, and 3, which is global, entertainment management, sound, lighting, and stagecraft, working with entities such as Main Event, the blue economy, looking at a replacement for the jet skis that, you know, the hotels don't want on their property anymore. So they look at stuff like boat repairs, scuba diving, lifeguard, and most of those were PADI certified. We look at water audits and plumbing. The water audit aspect of it was actually to help to provide a certain skill set within some of the communities that they work, because you know that JSAFE has a very large infrastructure program, and we worked with NWC to actually reconnect and provide access again to water to those residents, you know, if they as good and fit customers for the National Water Commission. We look at recreational tourism and repairs. We look at online entrepreneurship, and that has been one of the non-traditional programs that has been very successful. We have had trainees that before the training ended, were actually have already earned over $1 million in that program. The undercurrents of the program is that it matters how we engage the trainees. It's important. The trainees are not only beneficiaries, they are also stakeholders. That young people, their time matters. So therefore, there's a strong negotiation process with them at the beginning of the training to really sell them the particular demand-driven training, how it can quickly move them from a corner, from their homes to a job, the commitment that they need to put in and what we will be providing for them. They are trainable and they will respond to opportunities for self-development even when there is no stipend, because one of the big decisions that JSAFE made in about after cycle 1 is really to remove the stipend as an incentive for training from these young persons, and to actually compensate for that by making the training convenient to them. We provide buses that pick them up at various locations across the communities, take them to the training site. We provide a meal for them, and we work as best as we can to actually compress the training time, because we do know that it's difficult for many of them to do 9 months, 12 months in training, because they have adult lives, even though they are young people, many of them. And you know, that the trainers, we work with the trainers to ensure that they're concerned with the holistic development of the trainees, and not chiefly, you know, on certification and just really in counting heads. Some of the challenges that we face was the lack of soft skills, and I see, you know, many of the presenters spoke to that, so that became, you know, a big component for the program. The entry-level education of the trainees, managing expectations on multiple levels for the trainees, both in terms of what will happen after the training, what will happen during the training. You know, there's really that need to keep them motivated throughout the program, and you know, just job readiness, you know, and also certification. And I'll just speak to the certification in a bit. In refining the best practice, we look at, you know, really collecting lessons learned and rethinking the budget allocated in regards to soft skills, because, as you know, a lot of time we tend to focus on the hard skills and not so much, you know, what needs to happen in terms of preparing them to be job ready, as we define it. And define the balance between skill and pre-skill remedial help, benchmark the stage at which the employer gets involved, and understand better the certification challenge to inform pivoting strategies. And if we should just break out the certification challenges a bit, what we found, and when I asked the question about what's the kind of standard, you know, in terms of how soon post-training that a certificate is issued, because JTEC, you know, there are persons who have been waiting for certification for years, and sometimes it just seems like the training institution just give up, and the trainee just give up, and they just really move on to the next batch. So the issue in terms of just service standard around that and really being able to stick to it, and that can be communicated to the trainees is you know, is really important, and it has been a challenge. Once the speaker spoke to the unavailability of assessors across many of the programs, and sometimes it seemed like the availability of assessors depend on relationship that particular institution has. You know, have with those persons that do assessment, and there seems to be little room for quick development of standards for emerging skills, because the world is changing, and sometimes there are some skills that you can see that there's a need for that, you know, but the standards are just not right there. I could point to the online entrepreneurship program that we did with Internet Income, and you know, they have been trying to actually work with NCTVET, I think, to develop standard, and they seem to have just given up. But that's one of the program where the young persons actually recover. They earn more than the cost of their training, like pretty quickly, doing a number of you know, online gigs, you know, gigs work. And for us as well, the on-the-job certification to, well, this might be a personal opinion and not necessarily a JTEC opinion, but it still seems to be an experiment. You can't fit into it smoothly to actually get persons who are at a particular skill level and really just need to be assessed to actually get the necessary certification to say, you know, I'm ready to work. And I'll just close here. Given the time constraint, I'll share the PowerPoint I have.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, Mr. Bennett. So many great points coming out of that presentation. And just before I invite your comments on Mr. Bennett's presentation as well as questions, I'd like to share with you what's happening on YouTube. So on YouTube, Howard Harvey is agreeing that we need to ensure that we start at the early childhood level and that we infuse soft employability skills, which is one of the things Mr. Bennett spoke about and the speakers before him at the early childhood and primary level, and there should be a policy to drive this. Also, another poll was completed. Persons are saying that overwhelmingly 87% that our HR departments need to drive workforce development within each organization. So thanks for those comments coming from YouTube. Mr. Gresford Bennett has shared the experience partnering with World Bank to improve workforce certification, particularly in vulnerable communities, right, Mr. Bennett? And I'm just going to invite you to share and to comment on what Mr. Bennett says, or any other general comment that you may have as we now close the, look forward to close in a few minutes the morning's proceedings.
If I may, Norda, Damian Black here. I just want to thank Mr. Bennett for his presentation. And I note with interest the removal of the stipend, and well, I'm going to assume that this relates to elevating issues related to motivation, participation, and so on. But, you know, I was really struck by that, and that you did not seem to have been affected negatively in terms of the rates of participation. The availability of assessors is another critical issue, and this is one of the things that we want to look at in terms with HeartTrust, NSTA, JCTI, etc., in terms of being able to ensure that as we move on, because you can set significant targets, but if you don't have the various components to be able to support that as you move on, then it is that you're going to be hamstrung. The critical thing as well is the tools utilized for the assessment. And I was in a meeting just yesterday with some international persons who are looking at some cutting edge ways to facilitate workforce, the assessment of skills, and thus leading to the badges, micro-credentials, etc., so that people would be able to thus secure these things without the system hindering them. And so I want to thank you for your presentation and the comments you made.
Thank you so much, Dr. Black. I'm not hearing Mr. Bennett, not sure if he heard Dr. Black.
Yes, I'm here. I said sure. In fact, just to respond to Dr. Black, I arrived at JCEC at the close of phase one, cycle one of the alternative livelihood skill development. And at that time, they were providing a stipend to the young persons to be trained, but the completion rate was around 60% and the placement rate around 10%. And we found that there were significant disruption within the training environment whenever the stipend is late, and that the motivation to actually attend the training was actually the stipend. So we decided to try something new given the scale that we're operating on, and would like lessons that we can share to actually remove the stipend and to focus more on a direct engagement with the trainees, as well as to actually speak to them about what they are being trained in and what it can do for them. And there are the other tweaks I won't get into. So for example, you having a main event during the training in lighting and so forth. You have guys that work with BC and JC that work with them around lighting, having a CAC involved in the air conditioning program. You know, they could see that path from where they are to where they could be. You know, the type of trainer that train them, a red seal plumber, plumber to train them in plumbing. You know, we had small adjustments that we made to test how that would work, the environment that they are trained in, you know, changes such as those. And we saw actually an increase in their retention rate. We saw an increase in their attitude, and we saw an increase also in the placement rate, because many of them, companies, CSC employed quite a few of them. Main Event at one stage had about 40-something% of the trainees as employees, contractors until we had COVID. So there are lessons to be shared, which we have been trying to share with Art. So, you know, we're happy with the experiment.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much. And we'll definitely be remembering that point that people are trainable and will respond to opportunities for development. Nobody is irredeemable. People are trainable. They will respond. It's for us to ensure that we have the correct mechanism to reach people. I'm going to invite Dr. Black at this point to close the day's proceedings, looking at the way forward. As we thank all participants today and all attendees.
Thank you. I don't know, I saw that Carol Rose Brown. I've been trying to make a comment earlier. Just, I don't know, Ms. Rose Brown, you want to follow through on that comment?
Oh, Dr. Black, I was really concerned about the business of beginning at the preschool area for the development of our children. Just to add, I have this habit of saying things a little strangely, so I will tell you my thoughts on that. It is not simply that we must start at that space. It is that us human beings learn 60 to 70% of what we're ever going to learn in life by the time we're 6 years old.
Yeah.
So we don't have any choice. And the fact that we have not, for the last 40 years, been prepared to respond to this, nor to require the proper training and certification of teachers at that level, is evidence that we're not paying attention. I really don't know how else to say it. I mean, I think every person who has gone to school in education, who has studied training and development, knows that this is just a fact. And the fact that we have been discussing this to my certain knowledge since the 80s. It's 40 odd years. I'm not sure what is the cause of the delay.
Got you. I know the Patterson Commission's report, that is to say the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission, underscored the very issue that you have just raised. And certainly Mr. Wan, etc., in tabling that, and then others who spoke. The critical thing, the 2004 report tabled it. There were some things that developed, the Early Childhood Commission, etc., and the emphasis there. This Patterson report now, dated September 21, released January 2022, under the auspices of the Jamaica House Prime Minister, Most Honorable Andrew Holness. But one thing that they have critiqued is this whole matter of an implementation deficit. And I think that the conversation that we have had this morning, today, January 27, has been significant. And one of the things that we want to move forward to, even as we seek to build on the comments, the thoughts of the experts, the panelists, those who shared in terms of their comments and the various contributions, the experiences of JCTI, HART, NSTA, the critical points just made by Mr. Bennett in terms of the learning from JCIF's efforts in that World Bank facilitated projects, critical lessons, and we need to take them on board as we move forward. For the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, as we move forward, critically, we have indicated that we will be augmenting and expanding our procedures to ensure the engagement and facilitating the linkages between employers and the formal education system, the formal training system, to ensure that we can utilize and facilitate the utilization of the work context as part of this workforce development, workforce certification, etc. I like the idea suggested by Mr. Wan in terms of looking at a tax credit, and that is something that we can propose, as an incentive, you name it. Critically, we have got to acknowledge the fact of the services-based economy, as he indicated, and how best it is to ensure that the labor market requirements are indeed satisfied. The Prime Minister has articulated the need in terms of just looking at Jamaica in terms of coding, of the initiatives related to the cyberspace, related to software, hardware development. And so how can Jamaica's education system support that? And these are some of the things that we want to look at in terms of the components. We cannot leave out those who have been sidelined, unfortunately, given the lack of certification by the formal education system. And so we will be pulling all of this together as we move forward. So basically, in terms of next steps, we will be concluding by the 3rd of February a draft strategy that will incorporate many of the things that we have been speaking about. Today, we want to look at a pilot to be implemented throughout February into March, and to be able to look at the findings coming out of the pilot, tweaking the strategy to be able to present a final report to our minister, and then to be able to take it forward. But critically, we have to look at the whole matter of the enhancing, expanding the credentials, the certification that's available under such a system, looking at how the assessment strategies that are appropriate to the workplace, appropriate to the workers, their needs in terms of travel, in terms of being at work, in terms of just being able to access, and looking at the challenges that we face in terms of access, connectivity, etc., looking at some of these program offerings. We will be able to share this with you. We will have another session, another webinar on the 3rd of March. And we want then now to be able to pull in some of the global strategies that are being employed in terms of workforce certification, and to see if we can then learn from what's happening from our international partners, colleagues, and to be able to push forward in strengthening the system here in Jamaica and in developing a strategy that will work for us, bearing in mind the issues that we have raised through the course of this day's webinar. And so we thank you for joining us. We thank all the presenters, and I do salute you. Thank you for joining and participating. Nora?
Thank you, Dr. Black. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, it has been a wonderful morning. We've learned so much. We've been able to identify the gaps. We've been able to look keenly at the challenges faced by some of our institutions and organizations, as well as our society as a whole. We've been able as well to look at the way forward, to look at the opportunities for us to improve. Thank you so much. And please follow us on J-TEC TV, follow us on Instagram, follow us on all our platforms as we continue these very important conversations on workforce development, on workforce certification, ensuring that the 65% or so of the Jamaican workforce that's not certified becomes certified. Special thanks to our main presenters, Ms. Carol Rose Brown, Director of Jamaica Center of Tourism Innovation, as well as the Senior Director of Standards, Curriculum and Learning Resources, Dr. Marcia Amonde, Mr. David Wan, the Chairman of the Jamaica Employers Federation, and thank you so much, Mr. Gresford Bennett, Social Services Manager of the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, for sharing. We look forward to the continued partnership, and we look forward to ensuring that the 65% without certification becomes a much lower percentage in the very near future. Together we can do it as we seek to develop Jamaica and ensure that Vision 2030 becomes a reality. Thanks to all our participants, all the representatives on all our platform who've really made today worthwhile. Thank you.
Do you have a skill? Do you have a certificate to show that you are qualified? A degree perhaps? Are you wondering what your qualification is worth? If so, you need to know about the National Qualifications Framework of Jamaica, the NQFJ. I am Monique Price, and I'll be telling you about the NQFJ.
It is a tool that classifies all qualifications in the country. It recognizes qualifications, knowledge, and skills. The framework describes for you what learners should know, understand, and be able to do on the basis of a given qualification. It was developed as a requirement of Jamaica's Vision 2030 development plan to assist in the transformation of Jamaica's education sector.
There are several benefits of the NQFJ. It allows your qualifications to be recognized in other countries.
It means if you earned your qualification in Jamaica, it can be legally accepted and easily recognized in another country. It shows the equivalency of qualifications across learning sectors and regions around the globe. It increases access to higher education through flexible learning pathways that recognize formal, informal, and non-formal learning. It sets standards that evaluate the quality, validity, and relevance of qualifications.
There are 10 established qualification levels, ranging from Access 1, which is basic, to doctoral studies.
The NQFJ covers all learning sectors including general, secondary, technical and vocational, and tertiary education. Plus, it allows for the development of prior learning assessment and recognition, as well as credit accumulation and transfer systems. All qualifications placed under the framework are national qualifications provided by entities legally operating in Jamaica.
For further details on how the NQFJ works, please visit jtec.gov.jm or call 876-977-5115. Go higher, move up the levels with the NQFJ.
Good day, I'm Gabrielle Thompson with an item of interest just in. The Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, J-TEC, is reporting that persons who have learned skills and competencies through experience are now able to get qualified. This is done through the Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition (PLAR) component of the Commission's National Qualification Framework of Jamaica, NQFJ. The PLAR identifies, documents, and assesses prior learning. Getting qualified through PLAR is for persons who have gained experience in various jobs and voluntary activities through a hobby, interests, independent study, or through training courses. Assessing prior learning takes into consideration your portfolio, results of a challenge exam, and your ability to demonstrate your skills. The benefits of this component of the NQFJ include eliminating learning duplication. It increases self-confidence in learners, validates learning through work and life experience, identifies areas that require further study, and encourages learners to pursue further communication. J-TEC says people who fall in these categories are capable of getting hired because they can actively demonstrate their skills through the portfolio of work they have developed. Stay tuned for more items of interest.
So go call mommy about this. So good. Hi, mommy. Were you watching TV? Yeah, breaking news just came in to say that you can get certified based on your experiences, skills, and portfolio. You remember when you were thinking about getting certified in domestic work? Yeah, well, you can contact J-TEC because you've been doing this for a very long time. all you have to do is visit their website at www.jtec.gov.jm, or you can call them at 876-977-5115.